Greetings, family. Sister Shanice in the house. Welcome to African World Affairs. This is the news channel that brings you news, views, reviews, and information from an African-centered perspective. If you are not already a subscriber, please do subscribe. Today's story is the Israeli-Palestinian war. Israel has declared outright war against Palestine. To date, there have been about 50 wars against Palestine. So for many Palestinians, there has been a perpetual state of war. However, what we're seeing emerging over the last couple of days is unprecedented. So first of all, let's take a look back at the history of the region so we can get an understanding of what has been going on. And then we'll go forward and look at what is different about today. So first of all, let's take a look at the region. And as you can see from the map, first and foremost, I think it's really important to mention that prior to 1917, there were no Jews in Palestine. However, the gradual encroachment of the Israelis of Palestinian land has been happening, and inevitably this has brought with it tensions, and these tensions and the expansion of Israeli occupation, this is how the Palestinians perceive it as occupation of their land, really lies at the root cause of the problems that they have been experienced, they say, over the last 75 years. They've actually perceived the Israeli presence on their land as an oppressive and destructive force that the Palestinians say that they have had to put up with for all of these decades. 70% of Palestinians are refugees in their country. So how did they get to this place? How did they get to a place where they feel that they are under perpetual siege and prisoners on their own land? Let's take a look. Back in 1897, the World Zionist organizations funded by Theodore Herzl in Basel during 1987 was a program, it stated, that sought to give Zionists a homeland for the Jews under the Palestinian Secured Public Law. And by 1917, under the Balfour Declaration, the United Kingdom's Foreign Secretary Arthur James Balfour actually approved the establishment of a national home for the Jews in Palestine. Now, the Balfour Declaration, that was a public statement. It was issued by the British government back in 1917 during the First World War, announcing its support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, then an Ottoman region with a small minority of Jewish people. Let's take a look at the Jewish population before the 1900s. Now, prior to the 1900s, the Jewish population in Palestine was relatively small, estimated to be less than about 10% of the total population. And also, you know, they actually owned a relatively small percentage of the land. And the Palestinian Arab population at the time constituted the vast majority of the population. And in historical times, prior to the 1900s, it's estimated that the Palestinian population was over 90% of the population, and they owned the majority of land. And that can be seen by the map. In terms of the Israeli population, Israel had a population that included both Jewish and Arab citizens. The Jewish population in Israel constituted the majority, with approximately 74 to 75% of the population. In the Palestinian territories, including the West Bank and Gaza Strip, the population is predominantly Palestinian Arab. The exact population percentage can vary depending on the specific region and time frame, but the Palestinians always made up the majority in these areas. By 1946, the illustration on the map here, as you can see, can demonstrate and confirm that 90% of the land actually belonged to the Palestinians. And as I was saying, during that period, the Jewish settlers, you know, if they owned land in Palestine, they'd largely paid for it. So they came into the region as settlers initially, and they occupied, you know, some of the land that they had bought. But by 1947, there was a United Nations partition plan, and the UN General Assembly actually initiated a plan to separate the Western Palestine region into two states. While the Jewish leader accepted, the Palestinians leaders rejected the plan. And this actually resulted in uprisings in the area. So between 1948 and 1949, we have what was called the Arab-Israeli War. The Jewish community actually declared itself independent in the new state of Israel. Neighboring Arab states then intervened militarily, precipitating the first Arab-Israeli War. That war left a historic mark on the Palestinian land. It divided the land into three parts. The 1949 armistice gave Israel control over 77% of the Palestinian, what was originally Palestinian territory. By 1956, we had the Suez Crisis. By 1967, there was a six-day war that actually involved Israel fighting against three Arab states. They fought against Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. Now, obviously, they had considerable support from European countries and Western countries, and the result was that Israel ended up claiming control over Gaza and the strategic Sinai Peninsula from Egypt. The Sinai Peninsula from Egypt, the West Bank from Jordan, the Golan Heights from Syria, and Eastern Jerusalem. So we can see how the territory expanded, the Israeli territory expanded after the 1967 war. Then up to 2012, we had the Gaza Expulsion Plan. This was part of a unilateral disengagement initiative, and Israeli defense forces leave the Gaza Strip and force settlements in the northern West Bank region. Israel then launches a massive air campaign on Gaza with the declared goal of deterring Hamas, it claims. Palestinians actually submitted a proposal for membership and statehood to the United Nations. Now, from the Palestinian perspective, they have perceived this growing incursion and taking over of their land as a part of a wider plan, which is about ethnic cleansing. They have seen the destruction and the destroying of their homes, and they have persistently and consistently complained that these destructions and these attacks against the Palestinians have largely gone ignored by the Western media. We can see another map here, and we can see the small area now today that the Palestinians are trying to keep hold of. And we can see the large amount of land that has been taken over by Israel. So what has been the build-up to the full-scale war that we're seeing today? Because, you know, the Palestinians have been living with the situation of the continuing encroachment of their land for decades now.